Welcome back to Table Talk Next Level as me and Gavin Wilson here continue to figure out our way through the podcasting scene as we continue to learn and kind of figure out our structure. We're glad to have you guys tuning in. Last week, we had our first episode of Next Level where we went over the NFL Wildcard weekend, not Super Wildcard weekend anymore, even though it's still technically Super Wildcard weekend.
I mean, it was super wild out there, as one could say.
No,
okay.
it was not. A crazy weekend overall, and I mean, let's just get into it. And crazy in the sense that we only missed one pick last week on our Pick'ems bracket. We had a pretty good one, and Gavin, I mean, what went wrong for us?
Well, I think this is kind of what went wrong with everyone. It was the Chargers-Texans game. I mean, no one predicted Justin Herbert was going to have 4 interceptions in that game. I think there was a point before half, he had 1 touchdown, or no, it was 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and he had a 22 passer rating. Most quarterbacks have around 90, so, I mean, that's kind of how the story of the game went.
Yeah. It was interesting going into it, talking to a lot of people, thinking that the Chargers were really going to go out there and dominate. The Texans did not end the season in a good way. One of their worst games ever was against the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Scorigami, that game was. They showed up. It was a little iffy. The first quarter and a half, it looked like it was going the Chargers' way, but the final 2 minutes of that first half, it was just the Texans, it clicked, and that's when they really started to get back into the game. As you mentioned, Justin Herbert's interceptions, he had 4 in this game. Do you know how many he had during the regular season?
Yeah, it was only 3, so pretty big difference.
That is a major difference to go 18 games, I guess 17 with the bye. So 17 games with 3 interceptions and then have 1 game with 4. And some of the interceptions were his fault, but I think some of the other ones, you know, sometimes it's not. It's like the MLB, you know, it's not always, you know, error. It's not the pitcher. It wasn't Herbert's fault some days. It was bounced out. And is that part of it? Are his receivers really up to the standard? Is that the reason the Chargers didn't end up winning this game?
And I know you said receivers plural, but I would say one. Ladd McConkey is the only receiver. I mean, you have Quentin Johnston. I mean, he's just a shell of what he was at TCU. I think he ended that game doing cardio, so he had 0 catches, 0 yards. He had a drop that ended up going straight into the hands of a defender, and I think on the next drive alone, he had Will Dissly drop a ball. So, I mean, I don't even think it was just the Texans' defense. I think it was the Chargers' offense entirely, so I think they need to definitely get a weapon this offseason if they want to contend with Harbaugh.
And although we were wrong on that pick, we were both talking, it's not going to matter that much in the long run.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think the Chiefs are going to really struggle with the Texans or the Chargers, no matter which one it ended up being. They might keep it close. We know Mahomes loves to keep it close right up until the end.
Never wins a blowout. I mean,
I don't think it'll be a big difference maker. And then the Steelers and Ravens game that followed on Saturday, that one we also predicted correctly, which once again wasn't a big shocker that the Ravens
I was not
dominated.
Surprised.
No, nobody really was. But what they did do, I would say, was surprising. They ran the ball a ridiculous amount. Lamar and Derrick Henry. I mean, people have called Lamar a running back his whole life, but wow, has he just, those two, they worked so well together, and the Steelers' defense could not adapt to that run, which I think was the most frustrating part of the game, especially if you were a Steelers fan, was watching the defense just like, as a fan, you see them doing the same thing every play. It's like, all right.
They can't stop it. It's like Pee Wee football out there. And I mean, when you have Lamar back there at quarterback, it really opens up the edges of the O-line. Because, I mean, what the Steelers do really well is they have good edge pressure with T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith coming off the edge. Their interior D-line, I know they have Cam Hayward, but he's not doing much. So when you have Derrick Henry in there who can run it between the tackles, and then you have Lamar who can easily get out, and he can just drop back to pass. I mean, he doesn't have to run. So, I mean, when you have a threat like that with Derrick Henry and Lamar, I mean, it really opens up a defense, especially a good defense like the Steelers.
Then on Sunday, they started off the day with Bills-Broncos. What were your thoughts on that game?
It was good in the first half. I mean, Broncos scored that first touchdown. I think it was 43, 46 yards. It looked really good. And then after that, they kind of dropped off a cliff. But, I mean, I thought the game was going to be a little more competitive. But, I mean, the Bills just really opened it up in the second quarter and the second half. But I think what this game excelled at was the run game for the Bills. The passing game really wasn't there. I mean, Josh Allen didn't go crazy this game. He wasn't Superman or anything. But James Cook looks like a real starting running back in this league now. He's not efficient. His vision is getting way better, so he's not just running straight into the D-line. So I think James Cook is really going to be that X factor for the Bills.
Watching both of those games, Ravens and Bills, Did your opinion towards MVP sway?
I mean, I always try not to look at playoffs as MVP because it should be a regular season award, but it's hard not to. I mean, when you look at, like, Lamar didn't go crazy or anything against the Steelers, so, I mean, it didn't help his case at all, but it didn't hurt it. Same thing with the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen, he played well. He played fine. I mean, like, it can't hurt his case anything.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'd still think Josh Allen down up there in Buffalo should be the MVP.
Okay, so you're sticking with the Bills. Mm-hmm. Another upset game, I guess you could kind of put it that way, for Packers fans at least, was the Eagles-Packers game. Jordan Love, nowhere to be found.
I mean, this is kind of how he's been for the past 2 years. He's very up and down. This year especially, mid-season, I mean, he just looked terrible coming off an injury. That's really what sealed this game away. I mean, I know the Packers threw 3 interceptions, but there was only a 12-point margin of victory. Like, I think that doesn't show anything really about the Eagles. I think it says more about the Packers and how they were able to contain the offense. I don't think it's going to be that way, especially coming in the divisional round.
I kind of have a crazy take here as we went on to the Sunday night game. Mm-hmm. Commanders-Bucks, battle of the mid. I think both of those teams
That was the best game all weekend, I'm going to be honest.
It was close because I think they were relatively similar in terms of skill. Mm-hmm. I think the Bucks and the Commanders are both mediocre teams. I think that the way they performed in that game was fine, you know, for that level of competition. I think Baker obviously really sold it with the fumble. I mean, that was the end of it. And Jayden Daniels, another good game, but I just don't know if he's there yet to compete on the absolute highest level. And I wasn't really shocked. I know some people had Bucks as favorites, but we ended up taking Commanders on that, and I think that was a solid choice. But it was close, and you're right. It definitely was one of, if not the most interesting games of the weekend.
It was the closest game all weekend. I mean, I know the Steelers scored a little bit in the Ravens game, but it was 21-0 at half.
It was so bad. It was not, you know, really the Bucks game was the only close
game.
one. And then our hometown game, Monday night, the Los Angeles Rams.
Surprisingly, hometown game.
No, nobody was expecting that. But the Rams coming here to State Farm Stadium, taking on the Vikings, another upset we had on our board. And we were right once again.
Which is weird it was an upset. I mean, the Rams have looked way better over the last 7 games than the Vikings did. I mean, last 2 games alone, Sam Darnold, including the playoff game and the game against the Lions, Sam Darnold has thrown 1 touchdown pass. So I don't think this shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone, honestly.
Well, I think the record is really where people were looking. You see a Vikings team, and so many people were upset. They think that, hey, look, this is a team that they're second, you know, but they have the 5 seed. They're one of the best records in the league.
14-3, and you're playing away.
I think, though, this was the best argument you could make for keeping divisions the way they are. People were like, well, you should make it like the NBA where, you know, divisions don't really. Clearly, the Rams prove that they deserve to be there, and everybody overlooking the Vikings. Yeah, 100%. I think the playoffs should stay with divisions how they are, and division leaders, you know, getting spots. Maybe go back to 2 buys. I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. In my opinion, having the super wildcard weekend and there really only being 1 good game.
Maybe expand the playoffs to 8 teams. I don't know. Bring back the second bye, and then, because I mean, then you'd have to add another playoff team. I don't know. I mean, Seahawks ended the season really well, and they were out of the playoff.
It's interesting to think about. Definitely, but I don't know. It's never going to change. The NFL makes too much money off having, you know, more games, and they just changed it. I don't see them changing it again.
Right.
It was interesting to think about if the Vikings did really go all the way, if they would consider changing divisions. I think, no offense, Vikings fans, kind of crybabies in the sense of the Bills a few years ago, when the Bills complained and got overtime rules changed, even though that had been happening.
I mean, it works then. If you can complain enough, it works.
I still think it's so strange. And a lot of people, I mean, the Niners in the Super Bowl last year did not know overtime rules in the playoffs had changed.
That's like, your own fault. How do you not know?
It's their own fault, but it's also not, because the regular season overtime is the same as it's always been.
It's only playoffs that changed.
Why? Why in the world would you only change playoff rules for, like, no. To me, it's like, if you have a rule every game should be played the same way. And the whole point was that, well, you don't want the game to come down to a coin toss. If these offenses are going back and forth, it shouldn't be heads or tails that decides the game.
And then that team wins.
But you have heads and tails potentially deciding the games for 18 weeks of the season.
I mean, those games should have the same levity as the playoff games.
It's baffling to me because I've seen teams win and lose. I've seen all sorts of overtime rules from college and high school to the NFL. And I think the way the playoffs do it is a better form. I think that the regular season should be the exact same. I don't know why the NFL decided that, hey, look, we're going to make these overtime rules, but only for potentially 4 games. It's dumb. It's a really dumb decision, in my opinion.
Some teams don't even get to experience that. I mean, it's not all the time you go to an overtime, so I don't really understand it. But getting off from our wild card picks and just seeing how all that went, I think we should get into our divisional matchups and see if anything changed,
Well, we did, as we mentioned, get one wrong, so now it'll be the Texans taking on the Chiefs instead of the Chargers. That's not changing anything. We're taking Chiefs any day on that, right? That's not a big factor. And then the other AFC matchup, Ravens-Bills. Ravens did really, really good.
They looked really good out there.
Really, really good. And I know it's the Steelers, but they looked really, really good. And I think they almost cancel themselves out. In my opinion, I think Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are serial playoff chokers. They cannot perform. But you put 2 playoff chokers on one team, now you found the secret recipe.
You get a 5 out of 10 player. I mean, if a 1 out of 10 and a 1 out of 10 go together, it doesn't mean they're a 10 out of 10.
Interesting way to put it. I think the Ravens have a chance. I think the Bills are fundamentally a more solid team.
They're better all around, in my opinion.
But this is the closest one. I feel like predicting the Super Bowl is even easier than predicting who's going to win this game, because I think it's going to be so close. And we chose Bills last week. I can't flip. I can't flip. I want to.
I wouldn't flip. I would still keep it the same even after the games.
I just feel like I was expecting the Ravens to not do good, but I'm sticking with the Bills for this.
I will too. And what about Chiefs-Texans? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, looking at the Texans versus the Chargers, anything changed with that?
Not at all. I'm taking Chiefs. It's not even a question.
You think it'll be a close game? I mean, it always is.
Like I said earlier, I think Mahomes likes to keep it close. He likes to play the villain, but I don't think that that's going to really sway the game. I think that the Chiefs are coming out on top, and I think the NFC as well is going to remain a pretty predictable divisional round. The Eagles, I don't think that
they're
crazy. In fact, if I had to maybe choose an upset, it may be the Eagles. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that game?
I could definitely see that happening because, I mean, you look at the Lions-Commanders, I don't really see that. I see that going the same way that we picked it. But Rams-Eagles, I will agree, the Rams looked really good against the Vikings. And I don't know how much that says about the Rams D-line or about the Vikings O-line, because I know they've had troubles all year with that. But it was a historic moment. I mean, 9 sacks in a playoff game, that hasn't happened in 30 years. So I could see the Rams beating the Eagles, but if you go off the script from earlier this season, I mean, come on. Saquon had 300 total yards on them.
The Rams are a scrappy squad.
No, I'll agree with that.
They're a scrappy squad.
I mean, Puka's out there, like, almost fighting dudes every play.
You have two Super Bowl contending QBs. One's won one, one's lost a Super Bowl. I have more faith in Stafford than I do Jalen Hurts. I really like the Rams in this. I think that they showed they can beat the Vikings. And even if Sam Darnold, maybe not as good as people were hyping him up to be near the end of the season, the Vikings still were a really good team overall, and they got hammered by the Rams. I'm taking Rams. I'm flipping my pick on this one. I'm taking Rams over Eagles.
I can't agree with you on that. I think the Eagles...
What are you going to do? Saquon Barkley backwards hurdle? Is that going to win you the game?
That will.
No. He's going to get
He had 200 yards the last time he played them.
Okay, that was last time. That was last time. This is this time.
Yeah, this time will be worse. Okay. He might have 300. He could break Adrian Peterson's
300 yards.
Adrian Peterson.
300 yards.
If they give him 35 carries, I think he could easily have 300 yards.
300 yards.
Okay, I'm not gonna call it, but that I'll say Saquon will have at least 150 yards.
That's more maybe reasonable because I don't think anybody else on the Eagles is good. I really don't. Crazy Crazy. Hot
AJ
take.
Brown is so good, he could go on the sideline and read a book. And I know he only had one catch, but
In no world as a role model, even if you're fourth string kicker, in no world
He'd be a meme all over
should you be
Instagram.
posted up on the sideline. Oh yeah, and then Jalen Hurts in the postgame conference, like, yeah, I don't even know if he really reads it. It's just like he gets in the zone.
did you see Devontae Smith looking
What?
over at him?
Yeah.
He looked over at him and he was like, bro, what are you doing?
Corny team.
It was a close game too when he did that.
Jalen Hurts, kind of the Jason Tatum of the NFL.
Mr. Instagram quote.
Yeah, the Eagles they're all kind of like that. So I'm flipping the Rams. I don't think Barkley's going to have a 300-yard game.
I trust in Mr. Instagram.
Crazy. Lions Commanders, last one in the divisional.
Same way that I think it's going to go. Commanders will put up a good fight, honestly. I don't think it's going to be as bad as the Vikings-Rams was, but it's two young teams. I mean, Commanders are a really young team. Lions are an ascending team. I think this is their window. They're really hungry, 1 seed. So I can see them really trying their best out there, pulling out everything. Because, Ben Johnson is a creative mind, but this is the playoffs. We haven't even seen, like, the tip of the iceberg for his trick plays.
Mm-hmm. When we look at our whole Pick'em's bracket now, that would lead the conference championship matchup to be
AFC still stays the same.
Chiefs and Bills, which would remain the same. And whether you flip out the Eagles or the Rams, in my opinion, to go against the Lions in the NFC, I think we still have Lions-Chiefs as the Super Bowl.
And then Lions is the winner, yes. I still think the NFC Championship is going to be Lions' way, no matter who they play. So I think that way, the Lions just have that tenacity in them. And Dan Campbell really wants to bring Detroit a championship.
All of Detroit wants to. That's the number one thing that I love about Dan Campbell, as much as I gave him some pointers, because I'm sure he's wanting to listen to me last week.
I know. I think I heard that he was listening in on this.
Yeah, you heard.
I mean, week off.
Mm-hmm. He's such an inspirational leader. That whole team, it's such a cliche, but they've all bought in. They all believe. And some teams are about money, just playing. That's a team that wants to win.
They've gone continuously better over the last 3 or 4 seasons, and it's just so fun to watch.
It'll be really tough to beat. Now that we look, though, outside of the playoffs, and some of the coaches can't really do anything because there's limitations on coaching interviews. One of the biggest coaching changes that did happen in the last week was with the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. Mike McCarthy getting fired, This kind of caught me off guard. I know the Cowboys had a bad season, but I think it was due to injuries. I mean, Dak Prescott, he was playing okay, not terrible, but he got hurt. CeeDee Lamb was dealing with injuries all season. Micah Parsons was hurt for the first 5-6 weeks of the season. Trayvon Diggs, he might have tore his ACL, Achilles, I'm not sure. But I think this can kind of be boiled down to injuries, and then Jerry Jones just kind of wanted something different. He wants a coach who can really go out there and get them another playoff win. Because Dak Prescott has the same amount of playoff wins as C.J. Stroud now. And Dak Prescott's almost 30 years old, and C.J. Stroud is a second-year rookie.
You cannot have somebody like Jerry to have a successful organization. He is too directly involved. I believe he's their GM, as well
He's
as
the owner and the GM.
Sometimes the GM's got to go. You can't kick out the GM if it's the owner.
Raiders GM just got fired, so what are you supposed to do with Jerry Jones?
This is going to sound a little morbid. I think Cowboys fans are going to have to wait until Jerry, for them to be good again. Because if he is their owner, unless he decides to sell it because he physically, can't run a team anymore, the Cowboys are in a situation in which
He's not going to give up the power.
Their problem is at the top. So I don't think who you trade out coaches for is really going to matter unless there's one coach in particular that you decide to pick up. Do you know who I'm thinking of, Gavin?
I believe I do.
Deion Sanders to the Cowboys as head coach.
It's not happening. It's not going to happen.
Why not?
He loves it in Colorado. He's building a culture there. Colorado's never been a football.
He's there for his kids and Travis Hunter.
Well, he went there and his kids followed him. It's not like his kids transferred. He's like, oh, now I'm going to go coach.
You don't think they were like, okay, look, if I get a coaching job here, you're going to come with me?
Well, yeah. But
They planned that out before he went there. Come on.
He could have went somewhere else, but he went to Colorado specifically.
Because it was a low-level program that he could work his way up in and get control over. The Cowboys, he went,
You think he should be the head coach of the Cowboys?
Yeah. I think that he is.
He's been head coaching for 3 years now.
Okay, think about J.J. Redick with the Lakers. Before he got a head coaching job as the Lakers.
Now we're switching sports.
No, hold on.
Okay.
His only experience as a head coach was of a 4th grade recreational basketball team.
But
and
it's
now he's
JJ
the
Redick.
head coach of the Lakers.
And I guess it's Dion.
Because he played in the league. He understands. Dion played in the league. He's one of the best players to ever play in the league.
30 years ago.
And he's had coaching experience, albeit at the college level. But
With NFL player talents, I mean.
Love him or hate him, he's somebody who's not going to take stuff from above. He's going to stand up. He's going to try and make his culture, even if he has outside influence like Jerry. You know what I mean? So I think Dion has a chance to change the system there, and he's a really outspoken leader like Dan Campbell, who's not going to be your quiet, forgettable coaches. We're not going to be talking about McCarthy in 30 years.
We're not going to be talking about McCarthy in 5
If
years.
Dion goes to the Cowboys, we'll be talking about him for the next 100 years, in my opinion.
100 years?
100 years.
This is like a reality TV show if he goes there. Jerry and Dion. It's like a buddy cop movie, you know? I just can't see it. I don't think he's that mature of a head coach yet to go coach a professional football team. I know but the difference between college and NFL is way bigger than you may be putting it right now.
Hypothetically, if he does go, do you see the Cowboys trying their hardest to get Shador on the team?
No. You have Dak Prescott. You just signed him for $40 million a year.
But do you draft Shador, let him learn under Dak, get him used to the
How
league?
Are they gonna draft him? He's going like top 4 or 5
No,
this
he's
year.
not going top
Yes,
4.
he is.
Top 4?
Yes.
Who's taking him?
I believe the Browns will.
The Browns?
They need a quarterback.
They're not taking Shador Sanders. They're not taking Shador.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
No way are the Browns taking Shador. They don't want that type of culture. That is look.
The type of culture that Dion built?
Yeah, he is his own culture, which is exactly why I think Shador would go to him. I think that's entirely part of it, and I don't think
maybe a draft day trade.
I don't
Never know.
think teams want to deal with that because I think there is some family drama and some nepotism there, definitely. And I don't think
your son is a starting quarterback.
I don't think anybody wants to deal with that. Hey, Shador, we don't need you. You're like go over here with Daddy. Let you get favoritism.
What if it's kind of a LeBron and Bronny situation? Maybe a team who's needy of a head coach drafts Shador and it, brings Dion there.
I could entirely see that.
Kind of like the Cowboys, but I feel like a team would want to do that without having to give up capital to draft him.
Maybe. It'll be interesting, but I think let's say this, okay, let's reach a middle ground.
Okay.
I think if the Cowboys hire Dion, they're getting Shador one way or another.
I don't know about that. You'd have to.
That's not ridiculous.
That's
not
be a high
ridiculous.
pick. That is ridiculous to say.
No, it's not, because I think the Cowboys would trade up or people would pass.
What do they have to trade?
I don't know, draft picks down the road. Hey, we'll give you a first. We'll give you
But
our next.
they're not in a spot to contend right now.
They could be. Or maybe it's a rebuild. Dak's getting older. Dak's not crazy. People thought he was.
He's a good regular season player. That's pretty much it.
Now, I'm not saying Shador's any better.
I mean, we have no idea.
I'm definitely not saying Shador's any better. But if you're trying to restart, you don't bring in Dion and Dak Prescott. You bring in Dion and Shador.
I don't agree with that. I think Dion should stay at Colorado, build a culture there, and Shador should go wherever he wants, wherever he gets
Go be
drafted.
a third-string quarterback somewhere in the league.
He will be drafted to be a starter. He will be a starter in the next year or two.
That's crazy.
That's not crazy.
Actually your craziest take you've said.
Over the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that is more respectable than saying Shador will be a starter within the next year. That's a crazy take.
Are you guys hearing this?
Shador is not league ready.
He's declaring for the draft.
I don't care, but he's not league ready.
He will be a starter in the next year or two.
Crazy take. Get your opinion on this though. Where's Tyreek Hill going? He wants out of Miami. What's he gonna do? Because he went to Miami for money. He played on the Chiefs to win. Got sick of that. Couldn't work out a deal with the Chiefs front office. I'm going to Miami to make money. He's making bank there, but now he's frustrated with not winning chips.
It's to pay for all the kids he's having. Okay. I think he has like 10 or 12 kids. So I've heard about that, through the pipeline and everything.
It's rookie numbers for most athletes.
I mean, look at Phillip Rivers. I mean, he could build an entire offense with just his kids.
For me, it's so confusing because you're on the Dolphins to get money, right? I mean, he wants to win. Obviously, he's not walking in the work. He thought they've had a chance with Tua.
They did last year. He looked really good.
But man, you cannot be complaining about you're tired of not winning or you're getting fed up when you went there and they were not the Chiefs. You were of course, if you're going from the mountaintop to all the way down here, it's going to be a culture
Best
shock.
team in the league, best everything, best coach, best quarterback, so going down to Miami with a new coach, new quarterback, very inconsistent quarterback, new system and everything. I don't know why he really expected to go there and bring a Super Bowl. I mean, he's a receiver. It all depends on the quarterback.
So do you see him leaving, though, or do you think he'll work something out with Miami?
I believe he'll work something out. This happens every single year. I mean, it happened with Debo 2 years ago, Brandon Ayuk last season. It happens every year. And most of the time, these blockbuster deals don't get done.
If he did get the deal, where's he going?
Raiders. I could see him going to the Raiders.
With who? Who's their quarterback? Aaron Rodgers?
Well, he went down there with Tua, and Tua wasn't crazy when he signed there.
Yeah, but there was tank for Tua. The Dolphins knew they wanted Tua.
That is true. Maybe head over to Jacksonville, a little over the lake.
So if he does go to the Raiders, I'm not going to get too off topic here. Do you see Rodgers going with the Raiders?
Rodgers to the Raiders?
Rodgers
is this
to
2022
the Rodgers
talk?
to the Raiders.
No.
Wouldn't that be great? Getting Devontae Adams to go to the Jets, and then Rodgers goes to the Raiders.
I heard something that Devontae Adams did want to go to the Packers, though. So it's
Again?
all these teams are intermingled and
circulating around. Tyreek Hill kind of reminds me of Jimmy Butler a little bit.
That's what I was going to say. That same city and everything. Now they won out because they're not winning and they're not performing to the best of their ability like they were. I mean, Jimmy Butler's averaging, I think, 17, 18 this year, which is good, but it's Jimmy Butler, so you want 22, 23. Tyreek Hill was hurt a little bit, but he put up below 1,000 yards this season. So they're very similar in that aspect.
I'm thinking back to Dion, and I want this to be what we end the episode on today because I know it's going to get heated. There are two massive athletes in music right now. Mm-hmm. You have you have Shedeur Sanders, and then you have Jello.
Oh.
One of the Ball brothers. Okay?
Everyone knows Jello over the last few weeks, obviously.
He's the swerve bend that corner guy, and he's competing with Shedeur right now, in my mind, for which athlete can make the best music. You have perfect timing.
People clown on it. It's a good song, in my opinion. It's a good song, and I know they forced all the Colorado players to listen to it at practice. But
So I'll pose you the question.
Okay.
Which song is better, Tweaker or Perfect Timing?
I gotta go Tweaker. It's bigger. I mean,
Is that just because it's more massive? That's the only thing you're looking at?
yes, it's very massive. I don't think it's ever gonna fade. I mean, look,
I
it's
could
already
see
been.
it tapering off at some point. I think he's a one-hit wonder. He got this crazy record deal for like $8 million.
He's gonna be at Rolling Loud. Did you see that?
For what? He has one song. How are you performing at a huge music festival with one song?
Who knows? He'll drop more.
Okay. Yeah, and it's going to be horrible.
Whoa, watch your mouth, okay?
I think people liked him.
He's related to the LaMelo.
I'll tell you what, okay? I think people liked him because it was shock value. Whoa, this is cool. He's new. Exactly. I think people like Shedeur because that's quality and class.
Do we need to do an athletes tier list of their songs? Because we need to get DJ Diesel in there. Darren Waller dropped that song once he divorced his wife. I think we need to set this up now. All these rappers. I mean, you have Damian Lillard. Miles Bridges even dropped a song.
No. In my eyes, Shedeur, Perfect Timing is better than Tweaker by Jello.
I can't agree with that. I mean, it's bigger. I mean, Tweaker by Jello is just, it's bigger, better. I mean, you got people in other sports saying it.
I did hear it. That's over the weekend. Some of the games were playing Tweaker before. It's big, but obviously I think Perfect Timing is. It's just so good. Tweaker's that classic throwback, but is he a one-hit wonder? Is he going to be doing these throwback-sounding songs every single week?
They wouldn't host him at Rolling Loud if they thought he was just going to be a one-hit wonder.
No, they actually would. They entirely would.
I guess we'll see. Okay, I want him to drop some more stuff. Maybe a collab with Cardi at Rolling Loud.
If he drops an album by Rolling Loud in March, and it's good, if it's good, and we will have to be fair judges of that, we will go see him at Rolling Loud.
Okay, we'll have a table talk at Rolling Loud.
We will have a table talk at Rolling Loud to see Jello's performance, only if the album is good, okay?
If he drops an album.
Because he's not going to. He's literally gonna go up on. He has 30 minutes of stage time, and he's gonna sing "Tweaker" for 30 minutes. You're gonna.
I would pay money to see that. That would be so funny.
Well, that's what everybody who's gonna see it is gonna have to do. You kind of have to pay to get in.
Okay. All right.
That's all for today on Table Talk Next Level. I know we didn't have the board today, but we appreciate you guys dealing with us as we continue, as I said, to work through the growing pains of growing our podcast.
I mean, the big questions of perfect timing versus Tweaker.
That's what you guys tune in for. You're not going to see that on anything, actually. Not ESPN, not
Fox.
Sports Center, not Fox, nowhere. Only here on Table Talk Next Level will you hear as riveting takes and opinions as the ones that myself and Gavin Wilson have. Make sure you guys follow us on our social medias. I would say TikTok, but I think we have 4 days left with TikTok.
By the time that you guys see this, it might already be gone.
True. There's a potential possibility that TikTok could be gone, depending on how fast we get this out. Go follow us there. Follow us on Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever. Follow us on YouTube. Leave a like, a comment, subscribe down below. Appreciate you guys as always, and we'll see you next week for the conference championships.